Uh, Hear, my beloved Lord, that which pleases my heart. Vouchsafe to me for one boon, the installation of Bharata as a prince regent of Ayodhya. And for the second boon, I ask with a joint palm. Pray, accomplish my desire, my Lord. Let Rama dwell in the wood for the 14 years in the grave of a hermit and wholly detached from the world. The king was grieved at heart to hear these gentle words, even as a chakravaka bird is filled with agony at the mere touch of the moonbeam. He felt dismayed and could not utter a word, like a partridge in the wood at the swoop of a falcon. The king turned altogether pale as a palm tree struck by lightning. With his hands to his forehead and closing both his eyes, he began to mourn like grief personified. The celestial tree of my desire that had already blossomed had been torn up with the root by the elephant like Kaikeyi just when it was about to bear fruit. She has desolated Ayodhya and laid the foundation of everlasting misfortune. An inauspicious thing has happened at the auspicious moment, and I am doomed by putting trust in a woman like starving yogi who has been undone by nescience at the time when his practice of yoga was just going to bear fruit in the form of realization. In this way, the king moaned within himself, seeing his bad plight. The wicked queen sulked within her and her heart, and said, "Is Bharata not your son, and have you bought me in consideration of money? If my word pierced you like arrow the moment they entered." Sani Barudehu Tajahu. देह की को भांति कुमति मन माका भरत गिरा और पुत्र विसाही की मोही. If my words pierce you like arrow the moment they entered your ears, why should you not make promises after careful thought? Either say yes to my proposal or decline. You are true to your promise more than anyone else. In the race of Raghu, refuse the boon you promised me, abundant truth and quote infamy in the world. Loud in your praise of truth, you promised me a couple of boons. Imagine, of course, that I would ask for a handful of past gain. Sibi, the Dichi, and Bali redeemed their plighted words, maintaining whatever they said, even at the cost of their life and possessions. In this way, Kaikeyi uttered most pungent words as though applying salt to a burn. A champion of rightness, the king took courage and opened his eyes and, beating his head, signed out, "She has attacked me, created an am not to allow me anyone out of it." He saw her standing before him, burning with rage, as if it were furry own sword drawn from the sheath, with a malicious mind for its hilt and remorselessness for its edge, whetted on the grindstone in the shape of humpback mantra. The king saw that the sword was dreadful and inflexible, and said to himself, "It is really going to take my life." Then, steeling his heart, he politely spoke to her in endearing terms. "My darling, why should you utter such unbecoming words, casting all confidence and affection to the winds? O timid lady, Bharata and Rama are my two eyes. I vouch for the calling Shankara as my witness. I will positively dispatch a messenger at daybreak, and the two brothers Bharata and Shatrugna will speedily come on hearing the message. Then, after fixing an auspicious date and making all preparation, I will solemnly bestow the kingdom on Bharata. Rama has no greed of sovereignty and is deeply attached to Bharata. I was only going to follow the usage obtaining among the princes, considering the seniority and juniority of the two princes. I sincerely tell you, swearing by Rama 100 times, that his mother Kaushalya never said a word to me in this connection. No doubt I arrange everything without consulting you, and that is why my cherished desire has not been realized. Now give up your anger and put on a festal grab. A few days hence Bharata will be the prince regent. Only one thing has caused me pain. The second boon that you have asked for is something incongruous. My heart is still burning with the agony caused by it. Is it the anger or jest, or is it all really true? Tell me with a cool mind, Sri Rama's guilt. Sri Ram. Everybody says Rama is extremely well behaved. You too spoke well of him and beloved him. Hearing now what you have asked, I have begun to suspect whether your profession of love was genuine. How could he, whose temperament was congenial even to an enemy, act contrary to the will of his own mother? No more of jesting or anger, my darling. Make a reasonable and a thoughtful request, so that I may now regale my eyes on the sight of Bharata's installation on the throne. A fish may rather survive even without water, and a serpent may drag on the miserable and the wretched existence without a gem in its head. But I tell you sincerely with a glueless heart that I cannot live without Rama. Be assured in your mind, my wise darling, that my very existence depends on the sight of Sri Rama. Hearing these soft words, the evil-minded queen blazed up like a fire on which has fallen oblations of the clarified butter. She said, you might as well as millions of devices, but your stratagem shall not avail with me. Either grant me request or earn a bad reputation by refusing it. I am not fond of much wiles. Rama is virtuous, you are too are virtuous and wise, and no less virtuous is Rama's mother Kaushalya. I have known all of you. I will repay with vigency the benefit she has sought to confer upon me. If Rama does not retire to the wood, assuming the grave of the hermit as soon as the day break, death for me and the ill repute for you will be the result. Bear this in mind, O king. So saying the wicked woman rose and stood up, though it were a swollen stream of fury that had issued from the mountain of the sin, and overflowing with the water of anger, was too terrible to look at. The two boons she had asked for represented its banks. Her inexorable obstinacy corresponded to its swift current, and the impelling force of Manthra's words stood for its eddies, uprooting the king like a tree of river headed towards the ocean of adversity. The king now perceived that the demand of the queen was really true, and that it was death itself which was dancing over his head in the disgust of his own consort. Clasping her feet, he persuaded her to sit down and implored her, pray do not play the axe with respect to the solar race. Ask of me my own head, and I will forthwith give it to you. But kill me not by tearing Rama from me. Retain Rama by any mean whatsoever, or your bosom will burn with anguish all your life. When the king saw the malady uncontrollable, he dropped on the ground, beating his head and sobbing out in most piteous tone, Rama, Rama, O Lord, Rama, O Lord of Raghus. The king was stricken with grief, and his limbs began to drop. It looked as if a wish-yielding tree had been knocked down by the female elephant. His throat was dry, and speech failed his lips. He felt miserable like a fish out of water. Keke plied him once more with pungent and the harsh words, injecting poison as it were into his wound. If this was what you intended doing in the long run, what emboldened you to say, ask us? Can both these things happen at the same time, O sovereign of the earth? To laugh a boisterous laugh and to look grave, to enjoy the reputation of being generous and yet be stingy? Is it possible to remain unscattered while playing the hero? Either go back upon your words or forbear. Pray do not wail like a woman. Life and wife, son, home, wealth, and the land have been spoken of as no better than straw in the eyes of the man who is true to his words. On hearing these pungent words, the king exclaimed, say what you will, you are not to blame for it. It is my doom which has possessed you like a devil and is using you as its mouthpiece. Bharata would never covet sovereignty even unwittingly. By the decree of the fate, however, evil counsel has shaken possession on your mind. All that is the outcome of my sins, due to which the tide has turned against me. At the inopportune moment, beautiful Ayodhya shall flourish again under the sovereignty of Rama, the abode of all virtues. All his brothers shall serve him, and his fame shall spread through all the three spheres of the creation. The stain on your reputation and my remorse. What do you mean remorse? Remorse means, what do you mean the remorse? Ram, Shri 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 Ram. Remorse. Remorse means what do you mean by the remorse? Deep regret or guilt for wrong commitment is called remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called the remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called the remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called the remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called the remorse. Deep regret or guilt for wrong committed is called the remorse. Remorse. Deep regret, reputation. The stain on your reputation and my remorse shall not disappear even after our death and shall never go till eternity. Now do whatever pleases your mind. Reputation. What do you mean by the reputation? Reputation means what do you mean by the reputation? Reputation. Reputation means reputation. Reputation. Reputation means reputation. Reputation means a belief or opinion that are generally held about someone or something is called reputation. The belief or opinion that are generally held about someone or something is called reputation. A belief or opinion that are generally held about someone or something is called reputation. A widespread belief that someone or something has a particular characteristic is called the reputation. A widespread belief that someone or something has particular characteristic is called the reputation. I beseech you with the joint palm, pray, speak not a word again. Remorse and shall not disappear even after our death and shall never go till eternity. Now do whatever pleases you. Whatever pleases. Now do whatever pleases you. Whatever pleases you. Now do 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 whatever pleases you. Only keep out of my sight, hiding your face, so long as I live. I beseech you with joint palm, pray, speak not a word to me again. You will repent in the end, O helpless woman, that you killed a cow for sake of gut. You will repent in the end, O helpless woman, that you have killed a cow for the sake of gut. Thus arguing with her in numberless way, the king dropped on the ground crying, why do you bring ruin to all? But ruin, what do you mean by the ruin? Ruin means what do you mean by the ruin? Ruin means what do you mean by the ruin? Ruin means ruin. Ruin means ruin is the physical destruction or disintegration of something of state disintegrated. The physically destruction or disintegration, reduced to a state of decay, reduced to a state or decay, reduced to a state or decay, reduced to a state or decay. Reduced to state or decayed. Thus arguing with the numberless way, the king dropped on the ground, crying, why do you bring ruin to all? But a past master advised, the queen did not utter a word, as so busy in preparing evil spirit in the crematorium to acquire control over a ghost. Stricken with grief, the king repeated the word Rama again and again and felt miserable like a bird that has been shorn of its wings. He prayed in his heart, may the day never dawn dawn, nor may anyone go and tell Rama, rise not, O sun god, the progenitor of the Raghuras, for you will be pained at heart to see the plight of Ayodhya. The king's affection and the relentlessness of the Kaikeyi both were the highest of their kind in God's creation. While the king was yet yelling, the day broke and the music of lute, flute and the conch was heard at his door. Bard extolled him and the ministers sang his praises. They, however, pierced the king like shaft as he heard them. These and other token of the rejoicing pleases him not. Even an ornament repel a widow who has decided to accompany her deceased husband to the other worlds. None could have a wink of sleep that night, since everyone was eagerly longing for the sight of Sri Rama. At the door waited a crowd of servants and the minister, who said to one another at the sight of the rising sun, the Lord of Ayodhya has not yet woken up. What special reason can there be? The king used to wake up during the last watch of the night every day. His behavior today appears most strange to us. Getting into the palace, O Sumantra, you go and rouse him. On receiving his orders, we may proceed with our work. Sumantra then entered the Gynecum, but it wore such a dismal appearance that he was afraid to advance. It looked like a monster that would spring on him and devour him. Its sight was so repelling. It seemed to be the very abode of the calamity and sorrow. Since nobody answered his caution, he proceeded to the apartment where the king and the queen Kaikeyi were. Greeting the king with the salutary words Jaya Jivan and bowing his head, he sat down. He turned pale to behold the condition of the king, who lay on the ground distracted with grief and colorless like a lotus stalk torn from its roots. The minister, being too alarmed to ask any question, Kaikeyi, who was full of evil and the void of all good, broke the silence. The king had no sleep last night. Heaven alone knows the reasons. He has been simply repeating Rama Rama till daybreak and refuses to disclose the secret. Therefore, call on Rama and bring him soon. Thereafter, when you have come back, you may ask for the details. Judging from his master's look that the king approved of this idea, Sumantra laughed. He concluded that the queen had contrived some evil design. He felt so distressed with anxiety that his legs refused to move ahead. What will the king speak to Rama after calling him? He wondered. Recovering herself, he inspired, repaired to the gate, and seeing him disconsolated, all began to caution him. He, however, reassured them all and proceeded to the apartment where the ornament of the solar rays Shri Rama was. When Shri Rama saw Sumantra coming, he receives him with honor, treating the minister on the equal footing with his father. Looking Shri Rama in the face, Sumantra conveyed to him the royal command and returned with the light of the Raghu's rays. Shri Rama followed the minister in the unbecoming manner. People here and there were grieved to see this. The jewel of Raghu rays went and saw the king in the utterly raised state, like an aged elephant who has dropped down in terror at the sight of loneliness. His lips got pressed and his whole frame burned. He looked like a helpless snake bereft of the gem. The Lord beheld by the side of his father's angry Kaikeyi, who stood there like a death personified, counting the last minute of his life. Shri Rama was compassionate and soft by nature. He witnessed sorrow for the first time in his life. He had never heard of it before, yet recovering himself as the occasion demanded, addressed his stepmother in the following sweet word: "Tell me, dear mother, the cause of my father's distress, so that an attempt may be made to remove it." "Listen, Rama, the sole cause is this: the king is very fond of you. He had promised me 2 boons of my choice, and I ask whatever I like." The king, however, was stricken with grief to hear my request, for he cannot shake off the hesitation on your score. Love for his son on one side and his plighted words on the others, the king is placed on the horn of dilemma. Obey his command if you can, and rid him of the severe mental torture. Kaikeyi unhesitatingly spoke these pungent words, which Colossus itself was so distressed to hear. With the tongue for a bow and the word for so many shafts, and with the king for a delicate target, as it were, it looked as a hardness had assumed the form of the great hero and practiced bowmanship. Having communicated the whole incident to the Lord of Raghu, he sat like a very incarnation of the heartlessness. The son of the solar destiny, Shri Rama, the natural fountain of joy, smiled within himself and spoke words which were free from all blemish and were so sweet and agreeable that they seemed to be the very ornament of the speech. "Listen, mother, that son alone is blessed who is devoted to the words of his parents. A son who gratifies his father and mother is rare in this whole world, mother. In the forest I shall get more opportunity of meeting hermits, which will be the beneficial to me in every way. On top of it, I have my father's command and your approval to boot, mother. Again, Bharata, who is dear to me as life, will get the sovereignty. God is propitious to me in every respect today. If I refuse to proceed to the wood, even under such circumstances, I should be reckoned foremost in the assembly of fools. Those whose nature a castor oil plant, leaving the tree of paradise and barter away nectar for poison, they too will not lose an opportunity like this should they never get it. Ponder this fact in your mind and realize it, mother. Only one thing pained me most, mother. I am grieved to see the king so distressed. That my father should be so overwhelmed with grief over a trifling matter is more than I can believe, dear mother. The king is stout of heart and a fathomless ocean of the goodness. I must have committed some great offense which prevents the king from speaking out his mind to me. I adjure you, therefore, to tell me the truth." The word of the Shri Rama, the chief of Raghu, were artless and straightforward, yet the evil-minded Kaki took them in to be otherwise. A leech must always move obliquely, even though the water on which it moves has a smooth surface. The queen rejoiced to find Shri Rama acquiring to her proposal and said with a false show of affection, I swear by yourself and Bharata that no other cause of the king affliction is known to me. You are not supposed to do any offense, dear son. A source of delight that you are to your parents and the brothers. What you say is all true. You are devoted to the words of your father and the mother. I adjure you to argue with your father that he may not incur opprobrium in the evening of his life. It is hardly desirable to him to disregard the virtue truthfulness that has fetched him a son like you. These polite words adorned her detestable mouth, even as a sacred spot, just as Gaya is situated in the accursed land of the Magda, South Bihar. All these words from his stepmother sounded pleasant to the Rama in the same way as the water of the all kind is hallowed through their confluences with the holy Ganga. The king's spell of unconsciousness now left him. He remembered Rama and the changed sight, and the ministers informed him of Sri Rama's arrival and made humble submission to him in words appropriate to the occasion. Hearing that Sri Rama had come, the king recovered himself and opened his eyes. The minister Sumitra helped his sovereign to the sitting postures. When the latter beheld Rama falling at his feet, overwhelmed with emotion, the king clasped him to his bosom as though a serpent has regained its lost gem. The monarch kept gazing on the Sri Ramas, and the torrent of tears streamed forth from his eyes. Overpowered with grief, he could not utter a word, and praised the prince to his great heart again and again. He inwardly prayed to the god that the Lord of Raghu, Sri Rama, might not be able to proceed to wood. Invoking the mighty Lord Shiva, he solicited him, saying, Hear my prayer, O ever blissful Lord, quickly pleased and indiscreetly generous as you are. Pray relieve my affliction, knowing me to be in distress, dwelling as you do in the heart of all, as the prompter of action. So inspire Rama that he may flout my words and stay at home, casting to the winds all sense of propriety and filial affection. Let worldwide disrepute be my lot, and let my good name perish. I would fain be damned to predictions and forego heaven, the abode of immortals. Subject me to the all severe hardship, but let no Rama be screened from my view. The king thus prayed within his heart, but did not open his lips. His mind quivered like an aspen leaf, perceiving that his father was overpowered with affection, and apprehending that Mother Kaikeyi might utter something again. The Lord of Raghu, Sri Rama, spoke after due deliberations, words which were not only humble but also suited to the place, time, and the circumstances. Dear father, I make bold to submit something. Pray forgive this impropriety on my part, knowing that I am yet tender of age. You have suffered for a most trifling matter, and the piety in the nobody apprised me of it. When I saw you, I asked Mother Kaikeyi and was consolidated to hear what she has told. Grieve not out of affection at the time of rejoicing, dear father, and command me with a glad heart. The Lord felt a thrill of joy all over his body as he spoke these words. Blessed is the birth on the surface of this earth, whose father is rejoiced to hear of his doing. He has in his hands all the four prizes of life: religious merits, material riches, sensuous gratification, and final beatitude. To whom his parents, whose his parents are dear as life. After carrying out your order and having obtained the reward of my life, I shall come back soon. Therefore, be pleased to command me. In the meantime, I shall ask leave of Mother Kaushalya and return forthwith. Then I shall proceed to the wood after throwing myself once more at your feet. So spoke Sri Rama and then departed, while the king was too overpowered with grief to make any answer. The most unwelcome news spread throughout the city as though the sting of scorpion had circulated his poison throughout the body. Every man and the woman who heard this was distressed, even as a tree and the creepers are blasted at the very sight of the forest fire. Whoever heard it beat his head wherever he happened to be. The grief was too great to be borne. Their mouth was parched, their eyes streamed, and their heart could not contain their sorrow. It seemed as though the army of Pathos has openly pitched its camps at Ayodhya. When everything was ready, God upset the whole plan. Everywhere people abuses Kaki. What sense could there be in this wicked woman having set fire to a house that had been newly trashed? She seeks to perceive after tearing out her eyes with her own hands and wishes to taste poison, throwing away nectar. This crooked, hard hearted, and the evil minded wretch has appeared to fire to burn the cluster of the bamboos in the shape of Raghures. Sitting on the twig, she has on the tree itself. Is the in the midst of joy, she has raised a structure of sorrow. Sri Rama has always been dear to her as life. What has led her to resort to such perversity? Sri Ram, perversity. Perversity means, what do you mean by the perversity? Perversity, 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 perversity. Perversity means vikrat, or perversity, a deliberate desire to behave in an unreasonable, unacceptable way, a quality desire to unaccepted way. Seers have truly said the woman's mind is altogether incomprehensible, unfathomable, and shrouded in mystery. Sooner man may catch his reflection, but it is known the way of the woman is impossible. What is there that fire cannot consume? What is there that cannot be effused by the ocean? What is there that a powerful woman, miscalled powerless, is common parents cannot accomplish? And what creature is there in the perishable world that death cannot devour? Having first obtained one thing, the Creator has now ordained quite the reverse of it. Having shown us one spectacle, he would now show us quite another. Some people said the king has now done well. He has not been discreet in granting the wicked woman her request, whereby he has wilfully courted all the tragedy by allowing himself to be ruled by the woman. He has lost his wisdom and goodness, as it were. Others who were saner did not blame the king, recognizing as they did his high standard of morality. They repeated and length to one another the narrative of Sibi, the Dichi, and Harishchandra. Some suggested Bharta's connivance, while still others passively heard what their companions said. Others stopped their ears with their hands and bit their tongues as they exclaimed, "This is untrue. All your merits will be destroyed as you utter these words. Sri Rama is dear to Bharata as his own life. Sooner shall the moon rain sparks of fire or nectar have the same effect as poison than Bharata ever dream of doing anything prejudicial to the interest of Sri Rama." Some blamed the Creator who had offered nectar but actually given them poison. The whole city was astir and everyone felt distress. There was a deep agony in their heart and their briskness was gone. Brahmana, mantras, and other venerable and the elderly ladies of the royal family, and such other ladies as were most dear to the Kaikeyi, began to expostulate with her, praising her amiability, but their words pierced her like shafts. You have always said, and the whole world knows it, that Bharata is not so dear to you as Rama. You have borne natural affection towards Rama. For what offense do you exile him to the wood today? You have never harbored jealousy towards your co-wife. Your loving disposition and cruelty are cruelty. What do you mean by your loving disposition and cruelty? Loving disposition and cruelty. Loving disposition and cruelty. Cruelty means kripa. Cruelty means a tendency to be ready to believe something real or true. Your cruelty are known throughout the land. What wrong has Kaushalya done to you now, due to which you should have hurled this thunderbolt against the whole city? Will Sita forego the company of the Sri Rama, or Lakshmana choose to stay at home? Will Bharata enjoy the sovereignty of Ayodhya, on the king survive without Rama? Wandering thus, banish anger from your breast, nor make yourself a storehouse of the grief and infamy. By all means install Bharata as a prince regent, but what need is there to exiling Rama to the forest. Rama is not covetous of sovereignty. He is a champion of rightness and has no relish for sensuous pleasures. Let Rama abandon his homes and live with his preceptor. Ask this on one side as your second boon. In case you do not follow our advice, you will gain nothing. If you have only played some joke, let us know by openly declaring it. Does a son like Rama deserve to be the exile to the wood? What will be the world say about you when they hear of it? Up quickly and devise some means to avoid grief and obloquy. Devise some means to avoid grief and infamy and save your family. Forcibly dissuaded Rama from proceeding to the woods and make no other suggestions. As the day without the sun, as the body without life, and the night without the moon, so the city of Ayodhya without the Lord of Tulsidas Shri Rama. Just consider this, O irresistible lady. The advice that Kaikeyi's friends gave her was agreeable to hear and salutary in consequences, but she gave no ear to it, tutored as she was by the mischievous humbug. She gave no reply and wore a sullen look due to anger that could not be easily curbed. She started at them as a hungry tigress would gaze on the herd of does. Finding her diseased, incurable, her friends laughed her, saying as they went, "Wretched fool, fate could not broke her sovereignty and has betrayed her. She has done what nobody else could do." Men and women of the city thus lamented and showered numberless abuses on the wicked woman. They burned with terrible agony inside. There can be no hope of the life without Rama, they said. The people were disconcerted at the thought of the long separation, even as exquisite creatures get disturbed when water in which they live begins to dry. Men and women alike were overcome with excessive grief. In the meantime, Lord Sri Rama called on his mother Kaushalya. He wore a cheerful look and had forthful joy in his heart. He no longer feared lest the king should detain him. The might of Sri Rama, the hero of Raghuras, resembled a young elephant newly caught with kinship for its chain. When he heard the proposal for exhilating him in the forest, he took himself as freed and felt overjoyed in his heart. The crown of Raghuras, Sri Rama joined both his palms and cheerfully bowed his head at his mother's feet. She blessed him and clasped him to her bosoms and scattered jewels in the raiment around him in order to protect him from the evil. The mother kissed him again and again with tears of affection in her eyes and her limbs thrilling over with joy. Seating him in her lap, she pressed him once more to her heart, while milk flowed from her graceful breast. Due to excess of love, her affection and joy were altogether beyond description. It seems as if a pauper has attained the position of Kubera, the god of riches. Fondly regarding his lovely countenance, the mother spoke to him in endearing terms. "Tell me, dear child, I beseech you, when will be the delightful and the auspicious hour, the beautiful culmination of piety, virtue, and joy, and the highest reward of the human birth, and for which all men and women long as enviously as a thirsty pair of chatka birds for a autumnal shower, during the brief period when the sun is the same longitude as the constellation named Swati, the Arcturus. I adjure you, my darling, to bath quickly and take some sweet dish of your choice. See your father after that, my boy, for I protest it is already too late." Even on hearing these most agreeable words of his mother, which were blossoms as it were of the celestial trees of affection, laden with the honey of joy and fountain of the worldly prosperity, the bees of the Sri Rama's mind could not be lured by its charms. A champion of the rightness that he was, he clearly discerns the path of duty and spoke to his mother in exceedingly polite terms. "Father has bestowed on me the kingdom of the forest, where there will be the great opportunity for me in every way. Therefore grant me leave with a cheerful heart, so that my journey to the forest may be attended with joy and the blessing. Be not obsessed with enormous fears due to affection, dear mother. By your goodwill shall be ever happy." Spending 4 years and 10 in the forest, and having obeyed father's command, I will come back and behold your feet again. Be not sad at heart. The gentle and the sweet word of Sri Rama, chief of Raghu, pierced the mother's hearts and ankles there. Alarmed to hear this serene speech, she turned pale in the same way as the Yavaksha plant is blasted by the shower of the monsoon. The agony of her heart was beyond description, like that of a doe that has heard of lion's roar. Her eyes were wet with tears, and her body violently shook like a fish that had got inebriated by sucking the scum raised by the first monsoon shower. Recovering herself, and looking her son in the face of mother, spoke in the flattering accents. My boy, you are dear as life to your father, to whom it is constant delight to watch you day to day doing form. He had got an auspicious day fixed for installing you as the Prince Regent. For what offence has he asked you to proceed to the wood? Let me know the reason, my darling. Who is it that has served as fire to consume the solar rays? Reading in Shri Rama's eyes, his tactic consents. Sumantra's son, who has obviously accompanied the prince, explained the reason. The mother was struck dumb, as it were, to hear the episode. The state of her mind could not be described in words. She could not. She could neither detain her son nor yet say go. She felt terrible agony in her heart in either event. It seemed as though one was going to ride moon and rode Rahu, the demon who is believed by the Hindus to devour the moon during the lunar eclipse. Instead, throw a slip of the pen, she said to herself, the way of the Creator Brahma are always adverse to all. She concluded. Kaushalya's judgment was swayed on the one hand by her sense of duty and on the other by her affection. She found herself on the horn of dilemma, like a snake that has caught hold of a muskrat. If I press my son and detain him, the moral code will be violated and have bad blood created between brothers, and if I allow him to proceed to the wood, it will be the grievous loss. The queen thus found herself faced with the embarrassing situation. Embracing, what do you mean by the embracing? Embracing means, what do you mean by the embracing? Embracing situation. Embracing means embracing. Embracing means embracing. Embracing means lajjapaspad. Embracing, causing embarrassment. Shameful means embracing situation, and was overwhelmed with grief, again realizing the duty of the woman and remembering that both Rama and Bharata were equally her son. The prudent Kaushalya, Shri Rama's mother, who has a glueless disposition, spoke as follows with great courage. You have done well, my child. I swear a father's command is the most sacred of all obligations. That having promised to bestow on you the kingdom of Ayodhya, your father has now decided to exile you to the wood. Does not make me the least sorry, but your absence from our midst will mean a terrible ordeal to Bharata, to the king himself, and the people. In any case, it is if it be your father's commands alone, my boy, then go, not remembering that the mother's ranks higher than one's father's. If, on the other hand, both father and mother have asked you to proceed to the woods, then of course the forest will equal to the 100 cities like Ayodhya, with the sovereign god for your father, the sovereign goddess for your mother, and the birds and the bees to wail upon your lotus feet. At all events, it is but proper for a king to dwell in the forest in the evening of his life. It is your tender age which fills my heart with agony. How blessed is the forest, and how luckless Ayodhya, that will be deserted by you. O crown of Raghuline, if I ask you, my boy, to take me with you, your mind will be filled with proud. You are supremely dear to all, my child. You are the life of our Shri Ram, 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 Sh What, mother, I In any case, it will be your father's command alone, my boy. Then go, not remembering that the mother's strength is higher than one's father's. If one, on the other hand, both father and mother have asked you to proceed to the woods, then of course the forest will equal to the 100 cities like Ayodhya. With the Salvan god for your father, the Salvan goddess for your mothers, and the birds and beasts to wait upon your lotus feet. At all events, it is but proper for a king to dwell in the forest in the evening of his life. It is your tender age which fills my heart with agony. How blessed is the forest and how luckless Ayodhya that will be deserted by you, O crown of Raghuline. If I ask you, my boy, to take me with you, your mind will be filled with doubt. You are supremely dear to all, my child. You are the life of our life, the vitality of our soul. As such, you say, mother, I go to the forest while I remain rooted to my seat, even on hearing these words and repeat. I go to the forest where I remain rooted to my seat, even on hearing these words and repeat Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram. ते तुम कहो मातु बन जाऊँ, मैं सुनी वचन बैठू पछताऊँ, मैं सुनी वचन बैठी पछताऊँ. Realizing this, I do not press my suit, exaggerating my first love. I only prayed that, remembering me as a mother, you should not allow me to slip out of your mind. यह विचार नहीं करो हट झूठ सने हो बढ़ाई, मानी मातु कर नाथ बलि सरत बेरसी चनिचाई. May all the gods and men protect you, O Lord of the earth, as the eyelid protect the eyes. The term of exile is like water, while your near and dear ones resemble the fish that lives on it. As for yourself, you are the fountain of mercy and the champion of virtue. Remembering this place, devise some mean to see that you come back in the time to find them all alive. I adjure you to proceed to the wood in good cheer, abandoning your servants, family, and the whole city. The fruit of everyone's meritorious deed is exhausted today, and the tide of fortune has turned against us, assuming a Suryan aspect. Thus, wailing in many ways, Mother Kaushalya clung to the Shri Rama's feet, accounting herself the most unlucky woman. Her heart was filled with terrible and deep agony, and the profusion of the wailing was beyond all description. Shri Rama lifted his mother and praised her to his bosoms, and then comforted her with soothing words. Soothing. What do you mean by the soothing? Soothing means. What do you mean by the soothing? Soothing. Soothing means. What do you mean by the soothing? Soothing means. Soothing. Soothing means. Soothing means Sukhdayak is called the soothing. Sukhdayak. Have a gentle calming effect. Sukhdayak is called the soothing. Sukhdayak is called the soothing. Sukhdayak is called the soothing. Her heart was filled with terrible and deep agony, and the soothing comforted her with the soothing words. That very moment, Sita heard the news and rose in great agitation. She approached her mother-in-law, reverenced her lotus feet, and sat down, bowing her head. The mother-in-law blessed her in gentle accents and felt distress when she regards her most delicate frame. With her hands bent low, Sita, who was beauty personified and cherished unalloyed love towards her lords, sat reflecting. The Lord of unalloyed love towards unalloyed love towards her Lord, sat reflecting. The Lord of my life would depart to the forest. It has yet to be seen who will have the good fortune to accompany him, my body and soul together or my soul alone. What God intended to do cannot be foreseen even partially. As she scratched the ground with the lovely nail of her toes, her anklet produced a music sound as if so declare the poet. They lovingly prayed that Sita's feet may never abandon them. Seeing her shed tears from her charming eyes, Shri Rama's mother broke the silence. Listen, my dear child, Sita is exceedingly delicate, and the fate of her father-in-law and the mother-in-law and the whole family. She has for her father Janka, the jewel among princes, while her mother-in-law is no other than the son of the solar race, your fathers. As for her lord yourself, he is veritable moon for the lily-like pregnancy of the sun god and the repository of the goodness and beauty. Again, I have found in her a beloved daughter-in-law who is amiable and accomplished. Amiable who is amiable. Amiable means, what do you mean by the amiable? Amiable means amiable. Amiable means amiable. Amiable means amiable. 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 Amiable means amiable. Amiable. Amiable means having and displaying friendly and pleasing manner. Having and displaying a friendly and pleasant manner. Having and displayed a friendly and pleasant manner. Having or displayed a friendly and pleasant manner. Having or displayed a friendly and the pleasant manner. Just when the creepers was about to blossom and bear fruit, God turns against me, and there is no knowing that the consequences. Again, I have found in her beloved daughter-in-law, who is amiable and accomplished. Accomplished means skilled in all. Accomplished means, what do you mean by the accomplished? Accomplished. Accomplished means highly trained or skilled in particular activity. Accomplished and the beauty personified. I have treated her as the very apple of my eye, and loved her even more. Nay, my very life is centered in Janki. I have fostered her in many ways as a celestial creeper, and nourished her by the feeding her with the water of the affection. Just when the creeper was about to blossom and bear fruit, God turns against me, and there is no knowing what will be the consequences. Born invariably on the bedstand seat, swing on my own lap, Sita has never set her foot on her hard ground. I have been tending her like a life-giving herb, and never asked her even to stir the wick of a lamp. The same Sita would accompany you to the wood and await your order, O Lord of Raghus. How can a female chatkora bird who loves to feed on the nectar, born on the rays of the moon, bear to fix her gaze on the sun? Host of wild elephant, lion, demons, and the other fell creatures roam about in the woods. Can a beautiful life-giving herb fit in with a poison wood, my boy? For residing in the forest, God has created Kola and Kirtagas, who are foreign to the sensuous pleasures, amenities by nature, but like the insects living on the stone, they never experience any hardship in the wood. Another class fit for the forest are the hermit women, who have renounced all pleasures for the sake of the penis. But how, my son, will Sita live in the forest? She who is frightened to see even the picture of the monkey is a female giant who disported the lovely lotus bed of the Mansa lake, fit for a muddy puddle. First ponder this, then, as your order, I will instruct Janka's daughters. If she stay at home, the mother continued, that will mean a great solace to me. When Shri Rama, the hero of Raghurat, heard this endearing speech of his mother, embedded as it were in the nectar of grace and affection. Grace, what do you mean by the grace? Grace and affection. Grace means, what do you mean by the grace? Grace and affection. Grace means so smooth and elegant of movement, courteous goodwill, bring honor or credit by one's attendance or participation is called grace. Bring honor or credit by one's attendance or participation is called the grace. Endearing speech, endearing. Share this endearing solace to me. Solace. What do you mean by the solace? Solace to me. What do you mean by the solace? Solace means, what do you mean by the solace? Solace means comfort or consolation time of distress or sadness. Comfort or consolidation in the time of distress. Solace. Comfort or in the time of distress. Comfort. Solace. Great solace to me. So when Shri Rama, the hero of that will mean a great solace to me. Shri Rama heard this endearing speech of his mother, imbued as it were the nectar of grace and affection. What do you mean by the affection? Affection means, what do you mean by the affection? Great affection. Affection means affection. affect affection. Affection means affection, a gentle feeling of fondness or liking is called affection. A gentle feeling of fondness and liking is called affection. A gentle feeling of fondness and liking is called affection. A gentle feeling of fondness and liking is called affection. A gentle feeling of fondness and liking is called affection. He comforted her by addressing tender and wise words to her, and then he started admonishing Janki by disclosing to her the advantage and disadvantage of the forest life. Comforted by Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri. Comforted her by addressing tender and wise words to her. Tender and wise word to her. Tender and wise word. Tender. What do you mean by that? Tender. Tender means tender and wise words. Tender means tender means tender. Tender means tender. Tender means transportation. All showing gentleness, kindness and affection is called tender. Showing gentleness, kindness and affection is called tender. Showing gentleness, kindness and affection is called the tender. Showing gentleness, kindness and affection is called the tender. Showing gentleness, kindness and affection is tender and wise word to her. And then he started admonishing Janki by disclosing to her the advantage. Admonishing Janki started the advantage, disadvantage of the forest life. Pause 14 for the 30 days recitation. Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram.